All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the SOP. Today, we are talking about Xbox, who, man, since Asha Sharma's come in, she's been making some really interesting moves, and there's a bit of a chain here that I would like to follow when it comes to Xbox Game Pass and potential shifts that they might make to that subscription service. Because no doubt it's the thing that gave Xbox a lifeline when Phil Spencer came in. I think that's really important to give credit to. At the same time, I always talk about how that lifeline just kind of started to choke them out a bit as the generation pressed on for the Series X and S. And unfortunately has left it in a spot where it's, as far as I'm concerned, your mileage may vary. For me right now, it is too overpriced. I unsubscribe from Game Pass more so on principle. I hate to be that type of guy. Like I unsubscribe because I'm not going to support the big bad company. Like that shit's pretentious and annoying. I'm not going to lie. But it really was like they just kept gutting teams I liked. And I'm like, why am I just giving them free money every month when I like sometimes don't even use Game Pass because I'm just like buying my games and paying for them, playing them. So like, why do I need this? So it's like, yeah, I can stick it to them that way at least, I guess. But now it's $30 a month for, Xbox Game Pass Ultimate. And it's because I think the realities of the industry started to hit Xbox, as we'll talk about today. They've been losing money on their games and they need to make it up somewhere. And they kind of accepted that with the growth not being there with Game Pass, where they wanted to hit like 100 million subscribers and they just beat over 30, that it's time just to kind of bleed those who are there dry. Get your $30 a month, even if like a bunch of people unsubscribe in the millions, you're probably going to get a lot of people who are still going to stick around and perhaps make up that difference. But this all kind of came back to a race to the bottom for Xbox. And that's why when this news headline had popped up here from GameSpot, which said new Xbox CEO can make Game Pass less expensive, there was part of me that, like, I don't want to say shuddered. That's a little extreme. But I definitely looked at it and went, well, we did this already. I'm not saying get rid of Game Pass by any means, but it's definitely not an easy problem to solve. But the benefit Asha has, as I'll talk about here, is that she's seen like all the different pricing moves for Game Pass, and she has that data, whereas like Phil, Matt, and Sarah were kind of flying into uncharted space with this. But let's just quickly refresh on this story in case you don't remember what's going on with Game Pass, but also it's an important building block for the latest memo that is leaked out of Xbox, which these memos aren't leaks. Like, as I'm sure you all are with me on this, like they're deliberately leaking this stuff to kind of feel out what the public sentiment's going to be, because now we're starting to hear again that Game Pass could be less expensive. What are the ideas here? How are people feeling about it? That's what Xbox is trying to find out here. Here's what Game Informer wrote, or Game Informer, oh my God, GameSpot. The information reported that one of our ambitions is to make future consoles and products like Game Pass more enticing to a broader range of customers. To that end, the report said that Asha Sharma might look to revamp pricing models for Game Pass to offer a lower priced tier. They said in the terms of a lower price tier for Game Pass, it's been reported that Microsoft could offer an ad-based tier for Game Pass in the future. And there was this April Fool's joke that I want to say it was Insider Gaming did it, and they called it like the Game Pass Flex tier. And it read so true. I was like, this is a cruel fucking April Fool's joke, bro. It read so accurately. And I'm starting to get the feeling that like, I could see that being the name, the flex option. Like, yeah, play for free, but you're going to watch ads. And I don't know, man. There's two ways this could go, and both of them I'm not a huge fan of, as I already kind of aired out, so I'll keep this brief. But just there's like paying for ads, which I think Netflix does and HBO does. Like, hey, you're going to pay us $8 a month and you'll get our content, but you're also going to get ads. And there's just free games with ads. And I think in both cases, like, games just aren't built to have ads as part of the experience. If you're watching it going into the experience, I guess you could do worse, but like, what, they're going to make you watch one ad and then people are going to just leave their Xboxes on the whole time. So there's got to be something that interrupts it, I think. Beyond that, Asha Sharma is looking into a Netflix partnership where literally this was confirmed by Netflix co-CEO Greg Peters. He says they've kicked around ideas for how they could work together, which is crazy. So again, they're kind of feeling out these ideas. And now we have a leaked memo here that comes from The Verge. Their article is paywalled. So what I've got here is IGN, where they write, the new Xbox CEO Asha Sharma has reportedly shared a memo with Microsoft employees that stated Game Pass has become too expensive for players. There we go. There's someone who's paying attention. The Verge reported on Sharma's shift in strategy, sharing details from an internal message sent to employees that it received today. As Game Pass has increased prices for players in recent years, it appears Sharma is looking into the gaming subscription service in the hopes of creating a more flexible system. What this kind of tells us is that they're not really looking to get rid of it. That probably would have leaked by now. They're looking to adjust pricing and try to maybe stabilize it. When I see these headlines, I'm like, okay, is Game Pass doing worse than we thought it was? Like, did they lose way more subscribers after that Game Pass price hike than we anticipated? That would be interesting if one day Xbox ever decided to share numbers on that, but you know, that'll be a thing that we continue to rely on leakers for. Anyway, this article's got a lot more to it. Game Pass is central to gaming value on Xbox, writes Asha Sharma. It's also clear that the current model isn't the final one, the memo said. Short term, Game Pass has become too expensive for players, so we need a better value equation. Long term, we will evolve Game Pass into a more flexible system. Oh, there's that term, flex. Oh man, Insider Gaming might have been on one there, which will take time to test and learn around. So also kind of a long-term commitment to Xbox Game Pass that like, hey, this is going to be here for a while and we're going to evolve it into a system, so they're not backing down from it. There are some tiers that they could do, like someone suggested a tier. I think it was Jez Corden, actually, who we'll talk about in a little bit, but someone suggested a tier for Game Pass that just had first-party titles in there. And I think that could be interesting if they got, like, you don't get the whole library, but you do get just like first-party day one stuff. And maybe that goes back to like $20 a month. Could see people being pretty happy about that. But there's more here from IGN as they cover the report from The Verge. They write, Xbox Game Pass currently has 4 plans: Essential, Premium, PC, Game Pass, and Ultimate. The benefits and price vary for each. You can read our full breakdown. Okay, here we go. Sharma promised to go deeper with the Xbox team about the points shared in her memo next week, but her comments at least suggested that adjustments are in the works. Information included in the memo follows a separate report from late last month that they were hoping to make Game Pass more affordable. Meanwhile, The Verge report added that some of the service's recent prices that have increased are related to Call of Duty's presence on the service, though it's unclear if there are plans to change that. While players may be ready to breathe a sigh of relief if Sharma's alleged plan comes to fruition, there are no details about what shape the potential Game Pass revisions may take. And again, I'm a little skeptical about price drops just because that's what Phil did. I mean, Phil created a complete value system around Xbox. That was their identity. I was looking for the word, couldn't find it. That was their identity for this whole generation. I always go back to the one that you've heard me say a number of times, but yeah, like Xbox All Access and just being able to get your hands on like Xbox and Game Pass for like $45 and just walk out with like an interest-free payment plan. Like, that's some good shit, dude. Phil and his team did that, and like people didn't show up. Like, I think, you know, there was some truth to the idea of like, it was only hot on PlayStation in some cases. You know, they brought some of their games over. They did really well. And like, I think some of the brand damage to Xbox is really tough to undo, even if like you've just lowered the barrier to entry so much. I mean, Game Pass spoke for itself. Just third-party day one, first-party day one, tons of games. But I think the reality is, again, with Game Pass is like you can make it as cheap as you want, but just people have limited time. It's something I talked about with our Mouse PI for Hire video. Just people got limited time. And if they're going to spend it on one thing with that limited time, it's not going to be Game Pass because they don't need like 8 million games. They need one. And so if they could spend now $30 a month, certainly you could. Mouse PI for Hire was $30. And that's a better spending of your money, I believe. Anyway, my mouse glazing aside here, let's get into kind of what was mentioned here at the end of the article, which was talking a bit about Xbox Game Pass potentially dropping Call of Duty. Why would they want to do this? Well, there was a Bloomberg report here, and it's covered by Windows Central Gaming, which says that Microsoft gave up $300 million in Call of Duty sales as a result of Game Pass, which Cog and I talked about this on Defining Duke, and we were both sitting there going like, it was a big debate, like back and forth, and I was like, I don't know. I don't think they should do it. think that's where we landed. I think it's just their biggest risk, and it might not be worth it, because if you undo the economics of Call of Duty, that damage, like that's what you paid for. You paid so much money for Activision Blizzard King, and most of that was for Call of Duty and Candy Crush. You cannot undo the economics of Call of Duty, yet they did. So the report reads, as in a recent Bloomberg report, Microsoft has reportedly given up a potential $300 million in Call of Duty sales. In the report, Cecilia D'Anastasio, I believe. I'm sorry if I'm butchering your name. It's 4 a.m. But bear with me here. The price hike and other changes to Game Pass plans are a sign that Xbox's big streaming push is still not generating the revenue it would like 8 years after launch, according to interviews with 7 current and former Xbox employees. The company is putting some of its top titles on the streaming service, but that's cutting in the sales of the higher margin games like Call of Duty. So it's also kind of referencing that there are other games beyond Call of Duty, which came in with Microsoft's 2023 acquisition of Activision Blizzard, said people who asked not to be identified, discussing internal company matters. Xbox again gave up more than $300 million on consoles and PC, according to one of the former employees. And that's just too much money to leave on the table, dude, especially like that's just Call of Duty. And what people are looking at is just Call of Duty in a nutshell. It's like what we haven't done yet is compounded it all. We haven't looked at like Call of Duty plus, look at last year, for example, plus The Outer Worlds 2, plus throw Keeper in there. Fuck it. Why not? Ninja Gaiden. Throw all these other third-party games in there. All of a sudden, Game Pass has cannibalized hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars of sales. So that combined with racing it to the bottom kind of puts Xbox in this economic conundrum once more. So what does Xbox do to respond to this? Well, they might remove Call of Duty from the formula here. Let's take a listen to the homie, Jez Cord, and what he's got to say on the matter here.
Replicant says, I'm not sure Game Pass is a priority for Microsoft as it moves into a more niche and PC-focused next gen. Maybe. I mean, it'd be interesting to see. Like, if Call of Duty, if they take Call of Duty out of Game Pass this year, which is a possibility from what I've heard, I think like it'll kind of reveal some of the cracks in the strategy, possibly.
There we go. The man who's got a ton of connections when it comes to Xbox and a lot of their insider reports is saying, you know, he's heard that they're talking about taking Call of Duty out of Game Pass. This is the problem, right? Because again, I think on paper, Xbox fans hear this, they're like, okay, there we go. Get that Game Pass price down. We're not thinking about the long-term economics again. And I know this is like annoying. Let me just jump into that real quick. I know like we're just gamers at the end of the day. Like shut up, have fun. And I'm like with you guys a lot, but look, like I never had a passion for talking about the economics of the games industry. Like if you look at my content from like years ago, I barely talked about this shit because it wasn't necessary. But then games started flopping, studios started shutting down. We had to learn about this. We had to know what the hell was going on here because it was affecting everything and everyone, like on a level we had never seen before. That's what kind of brought me into this conversation. I know like a lot of people are like, shut up and just play, but like, you know, it matters. Like the economics of Xbox matter if like last year was anything to go by with like how many choices they made that, boy, were bad. You know, the Game Pass price hike, the studio shutdowns, the project cancellations, like, you know, it's not just Call of Duty, but those decisions, again, compoundment is the word. The problem is that Call of Duty has a very, you know, casual audience. It's mass market stuff, dude. Mass market appeal. And you told them for the last 2 CODs, hey man, come play it in Game Pass day one. And you could argue, and I would hear this argument out, you could argue that with Xbox Game Pass, Call of Duty is a beast. It's going to sell anyway. So just sell it. The people will bitch and moan, you know, the more casual market. Like, oh man, what? I can't get as part of Game Pass. Like I wanted to get that Call of Duty for $30. But they'll pony up anyway. You know, Call of Duty's not going anywhere. Call of Duty's done really well for a long while. I wouldn't blame Xbox if they had that mindset. I could see that being a very realistic possibility at the end of the day. At the same time, though, we just saw Call of Duty, even in a bad year, it did really well, but we're seeing a little bit of a weakness, right? We're seeing that it is possible for another first-person shooter to outsell it, like in head-to-head competition. And that shooter was Battlefield 6. Battlefield 6 reportedly is the start of EA trying to work to being a more, like, annualizing that franchise, which I think is just really bad for Battlefield. That sounds awful. But someone wants to take on Call of Duty in head-to-head annualized first-person shooter competition. That's bad news for Microsoft. Then you've got games like Arc Raiders who are taking some of that multiplayer base away. So it shows that Call of Duty fans aren't just as casual as I'm describing it as. You they are there for other shooters. I love the term. Black Hokage is the guy who I think really brought this term to the forefront, but I heard it from Gene Park. Ball and gun gamers. I fucking love it because I'm just like, yeah, dude, like ball and gun gamers ruin a ton of shit. Like because of Twitter and Instagram and stuff, they have these platforms. They say these stupid ass things. Companies listen to them and genuinely like make gaming worse. Like ball and gun gamers suck. But I know there are just Call of Duty fans who like more than the ball and the gun at the end of the day. What we're seeing is that when you put a lot of guns in front of them in their games, that they're going to pick other ones up outside of Call of Duty. There was a weakness shown this year that if Call of Duty is bad and other games are good, people are going to play other games. Call of Duty will still sell. So there is rationale for both sides of the argument. I think there's rationale to kind of look at where Call of Duty is at right now and say like, dude, if you take this out of Game Pass, like people are just going to stop buying it. It's going to hurt the economic situation more. Best of luck to Xbox on doing that. At the same time, Call of Duty is such a beast that it might just find its audience anyway. People are going to buy it anyway. But the problem is Xbox planted a seed. That's the thing. Xbox planted a seed in people's minds that basically they were saying like, well, I didn't have to pay for this and I've learned I can live without it, based on some bad Call of Duties in the last few years. Like we've gotten more bad than good Call of Duties when you think about it from like Vanguard and on. Like it's just been a lot of like hit or miss ones. There are ones like World War II that were all right, but like very familiar, very, very standard Call of Duty, run-of-the-mill Call of Duty. Point being is that I don't envy Xbox's position here because I don't think it's an easy choice. Sure, you can remove Call of Duty from Game Pass and try to start selling it again, but I feel like this is just like, how do you not arrive to the conversational point of like, well, shouldn't we do this for all our like other games, in first party, because the sales were getting hurt across all first party from Game Pass and the economics didn't seem to be lining up, which is why you jacked the price in the first place. So it seems like Asha Sharma is trying to strategize around the idea of maintaining Game Pass at a lower price point without like hemorrhaging their sales. I don't know, dude. It's just, I think the more you look at it and the more you talk about it, the less it'll like, I don't know if there's fixing this is what I'm saying. We'll see though. Anyway, thanks for stopping on by. Appreciate you all immensely. And we'll see what Xbox does with Game Pass. No doubt I think they're going to introduce new tiers. I don't know if there will be a straight up price cut to Ultimate at $30, but they might surround it with more stuff to make it a little less like, holy shit, that's a high price tag. There might be a slight, like a tier in between that you might be able to get now. Maybe that just has those first party games only. We'll see. But time will tell. Thanks for tuning in. We'll talk soon. Bye.